Okay, we're gonna call the meeting of the executive committee to order. Roll call
Gary Mertig,
here.
Pat Kinney,
Here.
Clarence Campbell,
Here.
Bill Metzinger,
Here.
Sean Sederholm.
Here. Okay, we need a motion to approve the agenda. Bill?
I will make that motion that we approve the agenda as written.
Bill Metzinger makes a motion. Is there a second? Clarence?
Clarence seconds.
Clarence seconds. Any questions, changes? All those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Public comment. Anyone in the room for public comment at this time? Anyone in the room for public comment? Anyone in the room for public comment? Anybody online for public comment? Anyone online for public comment? Anyone online? Hearing none, we will go to discussion action items. Approval of the executive committee meeting minutes of June 25th, 2026. Bill?
We'll move to be approved as read.
Bill, could you use your microphone, please?
Al, sorry.
We'll have to share. Thank you. I'll make a motion that we approve it as printed.
Sean?
I'll second that motion.
Sean seconds it. Questions? Pat?
On Carolyn's last name, it ends in the minutes, it ends with B-L-E-Y. My understanding is it should end with B-L-Y. Okay. So we'll correct her spelling. And then a couple of things. I don't know if this was said in the meeting and I misunderstood it or missed it, but on the administrator's contract, the minutes show it being up in 2026. It's up in 2027. And then it says he's only had one evaluation in 6 years. It should be 5 years. So whatever was said should be in the minutes, but I don't remember it being said with numbers that aren't correct. So you'd have to check the actual tape, but the contract is up in 2027. But if we said 2026, that stays in the minutes. And he's had one evaluation in 5 years. But if it was said as 6, then 6 stays in the minutes. So other than correcting the spelling of the name, which we know needs to be changed, if the tape is checked and if an error was made with the numbers I just referenced, they should be updated.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, other than maybe going back and reviewing the video.
You know, honestly, it doesn't really matter, but I'm just, as an observation, I don't recall that being said, and if it was, I missed it.
Okay. Bill?
I'd like to amend my motion to approve the minutes as corrected by Pat.
Okay.
I'll second.
Have on file for copies after
Whoever's listed as John, can you please mute yourself?
Okay, so the motion been made in second to amend the approval of the meeting minutes to show that correction. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Vehicle use policy B.
So, you guys asked me to look up about what the rules are for youth drivers. So I printed this off the DOT website. Basically, there are a number of restrictions on people under 18 years old. Hours are limited. They have a probationary license. They have to be with somebody who has a valid license for 2 years, or a qualified instructor, or a spouse, or persons over 21. They could be with an immediate family member. That's about it.
Well, we wouldn't have anybody under 18 driving a vehicle highway never has an under 18, so.
No, it's land conservation that was looking to hire a high school student for
Oh,
the summer. That's
okay,
why it came up.
okay. Okay.
I know Heather and I both have opinions that we should not be letting people under 18 drive our vehicles.
And sometimes those under 18 have a probationary license. I mean, I realize it's 1 or 2 years sometimes, or maybe that's changed, but
Yeah, they have a probationary license until they're 18.
yeah. So what's the preference here? Do you want to say 18?
Yeah, I would say you have to be a minimum of 18.
Okay. Do we need that as a motion?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a motion to say that anyone driving a county vehicle has to be age 18 minimum? Valid driver's license, right? Bill Metzinger
Make that motion.
Bill Metzinger makes a motion.
I'll
Clarence?
second.
Clarence Campbell, seconds. Questions? Pat?
Are you addressing just this one particular topic right now, or are we gonna come back and look at
We're
other
gonna
things?
come back to
Okay.
that. Yeah. So the motion's been made and second to approve that anyone driving a county vehicle has to be 18 years old and have a valid driver's license, obviously. Okay, now, other questions? Oh. Oh, I'm sorry, Bill?
Are we discussing vehicle use?
Yes.
Okay, Matt Erickson from the Highway Department is here. And maybe he could comment on, we discussed it at the last highway meeting, but maybe he could comment on the policy for the Highway Department use of vehicles. Matt?
Good morning. So yeah, we did bring this up in our highway committee meeting last week. Just to talk about, all of our employees obviously use county vehicles on a daily basis for during normal working hours to perform their operations. But I wanted to talk about there's three vehicles that are assigned to employees to take home. They're assigned to the highway commissioner, patrol superintendent, and shop superintendent. So I provided a write-up that I provided to my highway committee, brought a copy in for each of you today. So, we use these vehicles to respond to emergencies, weather, traffic incidents, all sorts of different roadway emergencies, I guess you want to call them, incidents that happen that we need to respond to on a quick basis. So just wanted to go over what we do with the vehicles and why. Highway committee discussed it and made a motion to support continuing to use vehicles, continuing the current practice of assigning take-home vehicles to those positions that have 24-hour emergency response responsibilities, which are the highway commissioner, patrol superintendent, and shop superintendent. And the highway committee voted unanimously for the motion. I guess I'd take any questions from the exec committee if you have.
And this has nothing to do with current, but long-term, and if maybe past my time or somebody else's time, we're gonna have to be really careful about where an employee lives. And not picking on the highway department, but Emmer lived in Washburn. Matt lives just outside of not far from the highway department, but in another county. And if you hire a supervisor, I'm not kidding you, they can choose to live where they want. What if they live to choose 75 miles from here? I drove 53 miles to work for years. So I'm not talking today, but I'm talking in the future. You might have to look at when you hire someone, where are they really going to live? Because all of a sudden you could have a county vehicle putting on hundreds of miles just back and forth to work. And I'm not talking about current because it's working, but people choose to live a lot of places and drive a lot of miles. So in the future, it's gonna have to be looked at and, you know, Sean?
Yeah, I don't think it needs to be looked at in the future. I think it needs to be looked at now. There's a squad car going to Iron County every night. Because they can take their vehicles home. And just because it's always been done does not mean everybody gets to take a vehicle home. How often does the highway department respond on average to something in the middle of the night from the supervisor? Once every 6 months?
It varies, you know, with weather, you know, often in the winter
Obviously.
time, you know, we're all on call all winter. We respond all winter. Through the summer, it just all varies with weather. Last night I had a call at 12:45. I did not have to leave my house, but I did take a call at 12:45 for an incident down in near Glidden.
Right. But I mean, it's not an everyday occurrence. It's an as needed. So
Mhm.
is it justifiable for wear and tear on county vehicles for everybody? Is it justifiable for wear and tear, not just highway department? I'm talking, this is because of all the county vehicles.
Mhm.
Taking them home every night. There's patrol lieutenants, patrol sergeants, they respond too. They're once every 6 to 8 months, they'll actually leave the house, but yet it's a benefit to take a vehicle home because you're not using yours. You're using county fuel, you're using wear and tear, tires, oil, maintenance on the county vehicles. Fuel alone probably saved 25% on the fuel budget if no one took a vehicle home. Iron County, no one takes a vehicle home. I've been doing some looking, some counties do, some counties don't, and some are absolute, no one takes them home. It's something that needs to be addressed. If there's justification for it and it's beneficial to the county, absolutely. If it's not, and it's just a habit, no, I don't think so. You know, and that's, I think, part of what we're talking about today. We gotta figure it out one way or the other. Is there justification for all the time? Is there justification for pre-blizzard, pre-storm, stuff that we know is gonna happen? You know, that's my take on it. Any other questions or anything?
I would respond to that, just, you know, how do we know when the weather is going to happen? You know, Friday night at 6 o'clock, there popped up a big storm in Ashland. We did respond to that incident. These incidents, you know, they're not always predicted. They're not always, you don't know. So we need to be responsive as fast as possible, and being able to respond in a county vehicle gives us our tools, our lights, our radios, all of the things we need to be able to respond in a timely manner.
Bill? Sorry.
The thing is, what happens if an emergency arises and they don't have their vehicles? Where would they go? Would they drive to the highway shop to get it? Or is, you know, what would we do in a case like that? Or, you know, with like the sheriff's deputies and stuff, you know, where would they have to drive to pick up a vehicle to go ahead and respond to an emergency? Because, you know, some of them could be an hour away. And, you know, well, you know, sometimes responding to an emergency, the sooner you do it, the better, you know, so, yeah, I guess one of the things that I was aware of is that we had one individual that was, I'm not going to mention any names. He was in Iron County with his kids with a county vehicle having a picnic. And somebody had called and said, well, what's he doing in Iron County with his kids during the workday with the county vehicle? You know, and, you know, that should not be allowed. So, you know, I think we talked it over in the highway committee and we didn't have any objections as long as we know who's doing it. Maybe we want to put, if we're worried about being in a different county, maybe we want to put like a 10-mile limit or something. You know, realize that, you know, I'm happy that Matt lives in Bayfield County and we were able to hire him, but I'd hate to see someone that is qualified not be hired just because of where they live. And, you know, that seemed like a reasonable amount, but, you know, maybe we would want to put a 10-mile limit. You know, I see what you're saying. If they're driving over to Iron County, you know, every day, that's, you know, a little bit different.
This continues to be an issue I hear about, and I first heard about it when I was running, took out papers December of 19. I mean, of all the things, I got my ear bent about this topic more than others, and I said, look, I'm not even on the board. And it continues to be an issue for a variety of reasons. The Ashland fire chief apparently lives in Superior. Doesn't go over well with everybody. I don't know how they work that out, but that's apparently how that is. So these vehicles go home, but that doesn't preclude the person who took them home saying, I want to go to Duluth and go shopping or down to the Twin Cities. So we don't have the vehicle where someone else can access it because, you know, you can't ask the employee who took it home to be available 24/7 because we don't pay them anything to be on call. So you really can't say, well, you gotta, just because you took a vehicle home, you have to be available. So now the vehicle isn't where, you know, if someone's Duluth, Minneapolis, whatever, or let's say they had a gathering and, well, you know, it's going to be about 4 hours before I should be on the road because I had a few, you know, I didn't realize, you know, a storm was going to come up and now I'm not in a condition to drive. So there's a lot of issues with this. I think we should come back to this topic. I don't think we understand the pros and cons. And if we are going to make changes, you know, you get those in place and say, okay, we're going to do the following, you know, until such time, but the next, you know, person or whenever something changes, this is going to go into effect. So we're not dealing with it at the time of replacing a person. I would be curious with Health and Human Services. I know from my time on the city council, especially in 2010, when we looked at if we were going to allow gas stations to sell beer and we were looking at domestic violence, that was a real lesson on how much domestic violence we have in this county. I mean, it's astounding. What I wonder is, should someone from Health and Human Services have a vehicle available to go pick up kids at the drop of a hat? If there's a need for that, I don't know. But then as far as I know, our emergency management director, you know, let's say some big event happens, weather-wise, whatever here, you know, they gather in the meeting room at the fire station. I don't believe we let that person take a vehicle home, and yet that person will be our front person on coordinating response. So there's some things that don't make, you know, sense to me because we haven't looked at this overall. We just do a lot of, as Sean's saying, we've been doing things historically. And from what I could find online, looking at this issue in the past, a lot of it had to do with, you know, you go back most of a century when we didn't have weather forecasts like we have now, roads weren't what they are now. And well, then by God, the person that's going to plow the snow could take the truck home, and at least they could get to the garage. You know, that was more the rationale for it. But a lot of things have changed since then. I think there's a lot of issues we should look at. And I don't think we've done that cost benefit analysis to know where we should land on this. But I do know there's unhappy people and the fire department gets it too. One thing I learned there is, and it's probably the same with the deputies sometimes, is sometimes you're like, yep, we're working on making lunch, we're going to eat. And then you get calls and you're out 6, 8, 10 hours and you haven't eaten just before you went out on a long call. So sometimes they would stop at McDonald's or the grocery store because like, I'm starving, I gotta wolf something down, I'm not making dinner. And they would catch so much grief, even though it was understandable why they left if you knew the story, but we couldn't explain to the public what was going on. And right now, I can't answer a lot of questions that get raised, but you know, what Sean said there, I hear stuff too. And it's like, well, most of the time I'm hearing it, but I don't have, you know, evidence or facts. So I don't know what's accurate.
Okay, Clarence?
Yeah, I guess that's the thing that's of concern to me is the personal use of that county vehicle when they have it at home, and how do we monitor that? You know, and the example that Bill gave of the person who took a county vehicle to Iron County for a family picnic, that's actually a financial benefit for them because they're not putting wear and tear on their personal vehicles and, you know, probably using county gas and all that. And that's an income of sorts that they're not being taxed on. And so, and how do we monitor that personal use?
Okay, so is this something we want to just keep on the next agenda so that we can continue to get input and check it out? Sean?
Yeah, I guess, I hate kicking the can down the road when we can make a decision, but I wanna get as much information from as many of the county persons involved that we can. Do you all respond to calls, or is it one at a time? You're not on call every night, all three of the supervisors, are you? Or
So-
You, Kim,
So we have a call tree basically. My patrol superintendent would take the first call unless it's, you know, he's scheduled to be not taking that call. And then it goes down through the list of the other myself and the
is
shop
it
superintendent.
a daily rotation, or is it just on
So
first
so
person they call?
so through the winter time, we have a schedule, a set schedule. And then the rest of the year, it is how, you know, whoever they go through our call list. So if the patrol superintendent does not answer his phone, then it would go to the next person and so on. and
Would you
so
be
forth.
objectionable to the person on call can take a vehicle home? If there's a set call schedule?
Yeah, I mean, we don't get paid for a set call schedule, so I don't know that we
Well,
can.
the vehicle is a benefit.
Yes.
Regardless whether you use it or not, which 90% of the time you probably don't. If you do get a tree across the road, a culvert wash, so yes, you're obviously gonna go in, somebody, you're gonna have to have a supervisor, you're gonna call people in. So, I mean, we're trying to weigh the best options and the benefit of the county is what I'm seeing is what's the most cost effective and what's the most beneficial. Everyone thinks response time is great. It's no different if you have to drive to the shop and get a dump truck. Having a supervisor there, obviously you can see the initial damage from a storm or whatever by one of the supervisors being there. But you still have to get a crew in to fix it, and they still have to go to the shop, get equipment, get trucks,
Sure.
and come out and fix it.
But oftentimes that supervisor provides, you know, a safety net to the public. We have lights on our vehicles, we have signs in our vehicles, we can get out, you know, there's a tree across the road. If we're not there, somebody could run into that tree and cause an accident. You know, just because the employee hasn't responded yet, doesn't mean that we
Right.
don't have a
No, I
part to play
understand,
in
I
that.
do.
So maybe what we should do is, not only Matt, but we have the sheriff's department, we have Health and Human Services has vehicles. We should ask those supervisors to do something similar to what Matt did. And what vehicles they're using, who has access, and like I say, my biggest concern is, like you say, I don't know at what point you set some kind of a rule that says we hired Joe, but Joe lives, what, they live in 75 miles and they choose, or like you said, in Superior. I mean, are we gonna allow that vehicle to go to Superior every night and back and forth? It would accumulate more miles that way than it does to say, so, but I thanks for this and Highway Committee, but maybe we ask the other departments to give us something so that we have.
Well, HHS doesn't take vehicles home, so they
Okay.
they would go to HHS and pick up the vehicle if
Okay.
they needed to.
So then we would need that,
So I will ask the sheriff to attend the next meeting,
right?
or the chief deputy if he's not around.
Okay, Bill?
What does Bayfield County do? I heard what Iron County does, but what does Bayfield County do? That's a large county also. And, you know, maybe it wouldn't hurt to get some insight as far as what they do and what their policy. They might have a policy that's already intact.
We'll ask Mark for that.
Okay, Pat?
So I know in Bayfield County, they got garages up and down, you know, 63 and whatever, and employees often live, you know, as close as they can to where they work, just because that's convenient. They probably took the job because it was closer than driving to the other end of the county. You know, so you kind of don't want to work too far if you don't have to. So usually have someone local. So like, I can't imagine someone in Washburn where the county garage is saying, oh, we got a tree down by Cable. I'm gonna drive all the way down to Cable to get that tree, be like us driving to Butternut from High Bridge. So you think about response time, and with these long counties, having someone go from one end all the way to the other, which is like an hour, okay, that's an hour. It's also expense, vehicle and someone's time. What I would like to see on some of these issues, and trees is likely one of them, maybe top of the list, is we want to work more with townships. I think there's a lot of efficiencies to be had in this day and age with equipment, roads, to work with townships more. Because you get these townships 6x6 typically, how much equipment can they have to do what they need to do? Equipment is so expensive. Doesn't make sense for everybody to have everything because it sits too much and depreciates, gets to end of life. So the trees, is it possible that we contact the townships and say, look, if we have a storm blow through, if you guys are checking your roads for a tree that's down, well, what if we pay you to check our roads too? So if there's a tree on our roads, you get that and we'll just reimburse you with that because you're already there because you're checking your roads. So often, as the townships are checking their roads for storm damage, they're driving across roads we take, or they're darn close to it. So if you want to talk about response time, working with the townships, to have an agreement with them on certain things like cleaning up a tree would make more sense than, are we really going to get you to drive to Butternut to clean up a tree when somebody in Butternut is already close by and is checking their roads anyway and could get to it quicker than we could? I mean, sometimes, there's ways I think we could reach out to the townships and they could work with us more. And then there's things we can do that would seem to make more sense than the townships doing. Or, you've got some equipment that the townships, it wouldn't make sense for them to own. So it makes sense for them to hire you. But this might be something like, why are we driving an hour for a tree if someone closer could do it? And there's a little quid pro quo here on developing that relationship where we work together so they get a little money back when it makes sense for both parties. Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to get work from them to do work that they don't want to have the equipment and manpower for.
Clarence?
I'm also thinking about this from the angle of the insurance standpoint. Now, clearly, the guy who took his family to Iron County in a county vehicle, if he were involved in an accident, the county, that would come under his personal. He's not in the course of doing county work, and so the county insurance should not cover that. But even if an employee is taking a vehicle home and to work, when you take your personal vehicle back and forth to work, you're not covered by your company's insurance policy because you're driving your personal vehicle. Well, in effect, when they're driving back and forth to work, they're off the clock. So they're not doing county business at that point. And if they're involved in an accident, I don't think the county's insurance is going to cover it either.
Okay, so we will put this on the next agenda. We'll get some information from the sheriff's department. We've already got Matt's. Thank you again, Matt. And then we can discuss it further.
So as far as who is taking personal county vehicles home now? What departments?
Highway Department and Sheriff's Department.
Those are the only two?
Yeah, Land Conservation keeps theirs at the shop. HHS keeps theirs at their shop. Forestry keeps theirs at forestry. So it's just really highway and sheriff.
Okay. Pat,
Are you done with this item or are we going to go to other topics within the item?
I was gonna go to adjourn. No, just kidding. I think we're done. Unless you have something quick.
Well, I don't know about quick. So on trucks, allowing the people to drive a truck, are the trucks all automatics these days? Because they have to be able to operate them, and if.
Are you
if they're-
talking, the pickup trucks are automatic. We have some 1-tons that are stick shifts. And then as far as plow trucks, I think they are all automatics. There might be an old one in the fleet yet that is not, but we're pretty much believe our lowboy truck is a stick shift. We're almost away from that, yes.
Okay, the reason I ask is, they need to be able to operate the vehicle and, used to be more trucks with sticks and people knew how to drive them, but not so much. Okay, if they're not sticks, then we get that.
Well,
And
Pat,
then-
going forward, they're not making sticks for passenger type vehicles. That would include normal pickup trucks. Everything's automatic.
So then another one, it mentions OWI and DUI, and so Max is here, so that's good. It doesn't mention PAC, prohibited alcohol content, which ironically, in this county, we had an incident recently with one of our employees with that issue. So it doesn't mention PAC in this document, and I'm wondering if we want to add that since we have someone has that come up lately.
Max, your mic.
There you go. Should be put in there, operating while intoxicated, OWI, or so Wisconsin doesn't have driving under the influence. That should just be replaced there with PAC, prohibited alcohol concentration.
Okay.
And that
then-
could be expanded like this, I would say would be a little bit vague. Let's say someone got OWI driving an ATV. Would this apply there? So that could be clarified as to whether it wants to be any type of operating any vehicle or just the motor vehicle statutes, because there are different penalties and restrictions that go with each.
I think you want to put it any vehicle.
Yeah, so I would suggest we make that change. The next one, probably a Matt question. If they are put on unpaid administrative leave, they do that, this is with the CDL. So if they lose their CDL. Do you have any cases that you can think of or might happen where someone for the job requirements, they're told they have to have a CDL, but realistically, let's say they lose it, it wouldn't impact you supervising people to get the job done. It just might mean that a particular employee said, well, you can't drive that truck today, so guess what? You get to be the guy with the shovel on the low end of the totem pole here and do some grunt work because you can't drive right now. And then somebody with less seniority is going to do the driving because, well, you can't drive, but I can still put you to work. We can still get everything done. It's just that you're not driving the truck. You're gonna,
Well, but isn't it a requirement for your employees to have a CDL?
Yes. And I would say, especially in the wintertime, we all have to have a CDL. Maybe one of the shop guys could get away with not having it. They don't drive very often, but
and that's what I'm thinking.
The
The
rest of
job
us-
guys in particular.
the rest of us need to have a CDL to plow snow if necessary.
And that's, I'm thinking shop
correct?
guys in the summer in particular, probably.
I don't want to be a hard ass, but if you lose your CDL and that's a requirement of employment, I'm sorry. You're done until you can get it corrected. And maybe that's just me, but that's a requirement of the job. You hired that person with a CDL. So if they lose it,
So my thought or suggestion here is we give him the discretion on retaining that person for part or all of that 90 days, if that's best for your department. So I'm thinking in particular, if it's a mechanic and you're out a mechanic, let's say you've only got one because somebody left and it's your only mechanic, worst case scenario, it's your only mechanic, and they lose that CDL, but you can get by just fine without it. Are we really going to say that person can't work, or are we going to say, no, hey, wait a minute? I would just rather give him that discretion
right,
than,
yeah,
That would be
Then not.
nice, yes.
right. It's just a plow truck driver, I'm sorry,
yeah,
but
to give him the discretion to vary from that.
I don't want to get off on a tangent, but I'm gonna. I'm sorry, but at some point we have to enforce what is morally correct. And morally correct is you broke the law. I know Matt's sitting here, but sorry, Matt. But I mean, if you break the law, you pay the price. I do agree that the supervisor could have some latitude. But, I'm tired of the excuse, well, it was the 4th of July and I had too many and I got picked up. I don't care what day of the week it is or month. You got picked up. You broke the law. I drive 55. I'm sorry you're all behind me and you have to pass me. That's too bad.
So my suggestion is simply to give him that latitude. Worst
Right.
case scenario to me would be, you got one mechanic at the moment. Are you gonna really say, sorry, you're out of here for 90 days and now we have no mechanic, and who's gonna keep the plow trucks? I just would prefer
Correct.
to give him that latitude for all or part of that 90 if it's deemed in the best interests of the department and the county versus saying, no, he can't do it. And then we have to have a meeting to give him permission to have a mechanic fix a plow truck in the dead of winter if that's worst case scenario.
Right. Bill?
Is there a penalty like in the highway department or the sheriff's department if somebody gets a speeding ticket or another type of ticket? Is there any penalties that, you know, if I've been picked up 3 or 4 times for speeding, is there a penalty for that right now, or as long as you have a license?
Not that I'm aware of, as long as they have a license. This policy that was in the packet there, it did say something about tickets and insurance. I can't remember how it worded it.
Yeah, it's in our policy, it's in our policy, whether it's enforced or not, or anyone's checking on it. If you're in a vehicle accident at fault, or if you have X amount of points on your license in a 2-year period, then you can lose your job, period. But no, I don't believe we're actually drilling down on everyone's personal driving record. Should we? There's probably some that shouldn't be driving trucks, yes.
Okay. So is it agreed we're gonna move on, but we will bring this back with like the sheriff's department's information, Matt?
Just on that last point, you could add to the policy that any employee who gets a ticket or a citation has to report that to their supervisor, just so you can keep track of it. That's something I noticed wasn't in here.
Okay. Good. Thank you, man. Pat?
So if we go down to, towards the bottom, the following uses are prohibited. Further down. Further down. So number 2 there, driver impairment. I think that should be driving impaired if we're going to make it grammatically correct and consistent with the rest. But further below that, let's see. So number 2 in that same paragraph, it ends with employees who believe another employee is impaired have a duty to, and my concern is the word prevent that person from driving the county vehicle. So let's say I'm an 18-year-old and I'm hired and I got this guy that's 40 and I'm sure that he's tipped a few. What does the word prevent obligate me to do? And let's say he's a lot bigger than me. What does that mean? I do whatever it takes to keep that guy from driving? Whatever that means. I don't like the word prevent. I would much rather we inform a supervisor or an appropriate supervisor so that we don't have language that says Clarence has got to wrestle Matt because he thinks Matt's not fit to drive. We don't want to put an employee in that position.
I see in number 3, we got smoking. Maybe we should add vaping too. Because, you know, I'm sure that, you know, that's run the same line.
Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, that's definitely doable, but you need to add chewing as well. When they passed the no smoking in government buildings, when I was working, everybody started chewing, and you would walk around and find spit cups, and you get in a vehicle, there'd be a spit cup. If you're gonna do it, you're gonna do it across the board, no tobacco.
Oh, but I'm just saying, you know, more people.
Well, no.
In the advantage to someone who vapes, obviously I don't, but they put it in their pocket and then they vape 2 seconds later and put it back in their pocket. But no, I agree, Bill. We should expand that a little bit.
I never thought about chewing.
Yeah.
Most people don't until you got in a vehicle and there's, you know, a spilt spit cup in there so that someone else left, or, you know, in the office. Yeah.
So, okay. Dan?
Number 7 should have an exception for the canine unit too.
What do you want, Dan?
Number 7,
Yeah,
we have a canine unit. The
okay,
sheriff's department has a police dog.
yeah,
So we should, that would be an exception too.
sure. Sheriff's Department K-9 unit. Okay. Okay, anything else on it?
Well, the
Pat?
sheriff's department can pick up animals that go to the animal shelter too.
Yeah, and animals when they pick up for animal control.
Right. Okay, Pat or Clarence?
You know, I was looking at number 4 there and that really covers the situation where an employee is using a county vehicle for personal use because it says they're prohibited from transporting non-county employee passengers other than as authorized. So when you take a county vehicle to take your family on a picnic, that's prohibited by number 4 there.
And I think when we get done, at some point, we send this out to all the employees. Not, a memo saying, hey, you might want to read this.
This is Bill. We got all these rules and stuff, but what's the penalty? Is the penalty ever mentioned or, is there,
At the bottom?
I know, but I'm just saying, is there another step that should be, let's say I'm smoking in my vehicle, so what? That's really a penalty. If nobody's enforcing it, shouldn't it come to some other committee? Shouldn't it come back to some committee or somebody to have some type of punishment or whatever, instead of just being dismissed? Is right now, if you're smoking in a vehicle, is anybody enforcing it?
Well, the penalty would be up to Matt and I if we're in the highway department. If we're in the HHS, it would be Terry Barningham and I. So that's who would enforce the penalties and decide what the penalty is.
Since you've been here, there been any penalty issued?
There's one employee who misused a vehicle who's no longer here. The person who took the vehicle to Iron County.
Heather?
The last paragraph on the policy kind of reflects that. Page 2.
And that last paragraph that Heather's referring to is a catch-all for anything and everything. It's pretty standard boilerplate language for public employees in Wisconsin.
Yeah, and I'm assuming a supervisor would, say, hey, something was violated, one of the rules, and how do you handle it? I would give the supervisor some input and say, what's the offense and was it first time? Obviously second time becomes more, but yeah. Okay. Have we beaten that to death enough? So we'll talk to the sheriff's department. We'll talk about the whole policy again, I'm sure. And so.
Yeah, we'll make these revisions and if there's more, then we'll just redo
add
it
to
again.
Okay. Okay, C, supervisor handbook update.
So Heather and I went through this and made all the changes that the committee recommended. We changed the pay compensation. To my knowledge, we agreed that the per diem issue, we agreed that the wording was correct and we weren't going to worry about it. And then we added something for the planning committee, since that's a standing committee now. And that's here at the end.
I don't know if we have a cheat sheet, a cheat book, and I know it's a problem every 2 years because we elect different county board members, but there are still places within the county's website that has ancient history. And so what we should do, and we could remind even county board members, if you're going through anything or see a constituent, call and say, hey, I looked this up and it's still showing Joe Smith as a county board chairman or something, then let us know. Because somebody called me a week or so ago and said, hey, did you look at a certain thing? And I said, oh, that's been updated. And then they went back in and saw it was, but I do know it's hard at the election time to get everything on the website changed. And so, you know, my suggestion is if any of us or even the public sees that, to let us know so we can tell Heather or whomever to go in and make that change. Because week or so ago when they called, I said, I think you're looking in the wrong. It's not, it's been changed. I think they had looked at it prior to it being changed, but we have so many places where it lists county board members. And occasionally when you look, it's from 2 years ago or 4 years ago, maybe not 4, but if we see it, we should let Heather know or somebody.
Well, the other thing is they may not have refreshed their page. And sometimes if you go to a website, it pulls it up from your history.
And that could have been
And
what-
that's the old, and if you hit refresh, the new stuff comes up.
yeah.
So if they hadn't cleared their cache in their browser and it just the old stuff, you have to always refresh.
Okay. Okay, so do we need a motion to update these changes?
Yes, and we'll go to the board next week.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the updates to the supervisor's handbook, Sean?
Make a motion to approve the updated supervisor's handbook as it currently stands.
Sean makes a motion, is there a second?
This is Bill. I will second that motion.
Bill seconds it, any other questions, Pat?
So this was an ad hoc committee, which meant it did its work and was done. And under state law, we've got to do this every 10 years or less. It doesn't have to be 10 years on the dot. So as we move to a standing committee, the standing committee can update the plan, work on issues, et cetera, which makes sense. But if you update the actual formal plan, then you have to have public hearings of going through this process, working with the state to say, here's our new updated plan, which could be less than 10 years. So the world's changing faster than ever. We have a standing committee now. I'm not entirely comfortable with that paragraph with the 10 years there. I don't know that we need to change it, but it's 10 years or less. And then the word update is a little nebulous because this committee is going to work on issues and making some recommendations. But unless they go through the process of public hearings and update the plan that the state recognizes, that update word is a little nebulous there. I don't know if we need to change it, but it's at least some things we should be aware of.
Well, I think the planning committee, after they get this initial plan out, because we're at the deadline now, basically. We've run out of time. To meet back in January to go over the stuff that there's been conversation about, to say the least. Am I right, Gary? So they're
Good luck getting members on that committee the next time.
But their plan is to meet back in January to go into more in depth into some of these issues, and we can actually
Right.
hash it out.
And I think that's what's been the problem with the planning committee is it's got a timeline. There's so many ideas coming in that there's not everything, and individuals have items that has become just unbearable. But I do agree, it would help if they met in between the 10 years so that they could say, hey, we don't really like where this is, or we have better ideas. Because the meetings have become too long and butting up against a timeline, so. And Pat, you know. So anyways, okay. Sure.
Can the planning committee update the comprehensive plan anytime that they have a change, or we don't have to wait for 10 years?
Yeah, yes, they can. That was the whole point of making it a standing committee, because as Pat said, things are just moving so fast that we want to be able to make changes to certain sections as things occur, as the world occurs.
Okay. So there was a second. Wow, sorry. That's my fault. So there is a motion and a second to approve them. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. I'll put that $50 in the fund that, because I think that was my motion to charge $50. Okay, hold on, we'll get rid of this thing maybe. Well, okay, health insurance update, or for 2027.
Okay, this is just more of an update because the committee doesn't have a decision to make when the county board approves switching to the state plan. It was with the understanding that we had to be on the state plan for a minimum of 3 years. So it really is just an update. This year we were paying the 15% surcharge. Last year was a 30% surcharge. Next year it's no surcharge. In short, insurance rates went up 17% from this current year. But because we have the 15% surcharge, our effective increase is 2% or 2.5%. So the county won't see much of an increase, and neither will employees. And I put the 26 rates in here just so people can compare and see what we're.
This is Bill. Has this been brought up to the finance committee? Have they discussed that at all?
Yes, the finance committee knows about it. But again, we don't have a choice. The county board agreed to be on the plan for 3 years.
Is this going to have to be brought up at the county board and passed or no?
No,
Okay.
it's just,
Because it's already been,
it's just going to be part of the budget. And it's just purely informational so you guys know what's going on.
Okay, any questions on that? Okay, employee assistance plan.
I'm going to let Caroline talk about this one.
Hi, my name is Caroline Twombly. I'm the finance supervisor for the county. But I'm here to talk about bringing back the employee assistance program. This was something the county had some years ago, but discontinued from lack of use. It's about $4,000 a year. And effectively, we hire a contractor who can provide immediate mental health benefits to employees if they're, and anyone in their household who's experiencing, whether it's a personal crisis or work related, so they can get immediate mental health support. I have only been here since the end of January, and there are at least 3 employees in 3 different departments who have approached either myself or the clerk's office asking about such a program. It is not an uncommon program to have. A lot of counties have them. Many cities have them. The feds have them. So this is not an uncommon program for large employers to have to provide these benefits to their employees. It is a temporary stopgap. It doesn't provide long-term mental health care that if employees and their family members are deemed to need that, the company, so the employee assistance program, basically refers them out to a long-term provider that they would have to then pay for with their health insurance or their own money. So this isn't a long-term thing. This is just an immediate stabilization for employees who might be experiencing a crisis. And what it does is it hopefully would prevent your employee from needing to take more time off, whether it's them personally, it might be their child who's experiencing a mental health issue, whatever's going on. It's really meant to stabilize your workforce and to reduce absences and other, needs. The other thing that comes with these contractors is if we do have a critical incident, they will, at the request of the county, deploy rapid response teams to do basically a critical incident debrief. Those critical incidents could be employee death, employee suicide, mass shooting, whatever it is. So it's nice to have a contractor in place that could come in and provide those services to us should we unfortunately need them. Before you today, there are two plans that I talked to them, got some quotes from. One of them is All One Health, who used to be Sand Creek. They purchased Sand Creek a number of years ago. Sorry, I'm going in reverse order, Dan. This is the one at the bottom. So All One Health is a large nationwide corporation. They purchased our last provider, Sand Creek. They are currently used by Bayfield County, Douglas County, City of Duluth, some other northern tier governments. They do have existing providers, mental health providers contracted in our area, whether, so somebody could go in person. However, All One Health really pushes kind of doing remote access, so video, telehealth, that kind of thing. They offer 24-hour crisis response line. They do have a very robust app that they are very proud of. I had a long phone call with their sales rep. They are very proud of their app. It is AI run. The quote I got from them was for providing 6 sessions around a single incident. So they kind of break it apart where, if an employee is experiencing a mental health issue related to something very specific, they get 6 sessions. We could ask them for quotes for shorter number of sessions, 3, 4. They were very, they like the 6-session model, of course, because it provides them more money. We could go with whatever we wanted to, if we wanted a shorter number of sessions being provided to employees and their dependents. They charge for critical incident response by the hour. Nothing in our annual payment to them would be included with that. They offer, additional fees we can pay to bring them in to do management training, kind of on-demand HR type things. But again, that's additional fee. It's not included in our annual payment to them. The other company that I looked at is actually out of Minnesota. So St. Louis County uses them. It's New Vantage. They are smaller, and they gave me quotes for a couple of different options, the 3 or 4 counseling service sessions. They do focus on in-person counseling. That is their business model, but they do also offer the telehealth kind of thing. Again, 24-hour response or 24-hour access to counselors for employees and their dependents. They do also have an app, although it's less robust than All One Health. The other thing about this company is that they do offer unlimited manager consultations. And that means managers, supervisors who are having employee relations issues can call for free. I mean, we're paying for it with our annual subscription to get a consult about managing and dealing with those employee relations issues. We don't have somebody on staff who is dedicated to employee relations. So I do see this as a benefit to helping our supervisors and managers better manage their employees if they're dealing with conflicts in the workplace. So they do also offer, when they do their critical incident response, if we needed that, they offer with our annual subscription 2 hours free and then you pay for the rest. Similarly, if they come to do training, they offer 2 hours free and then you pay for the rest. So they are very similar in the services they provide.
Let me just ask a question, and let's use New Vantage as an example. Are they saying that, say we had the 178 employees, and every one of our employees would get 3 counseling sessions for that $3,300?
Per issue, yes.
So if we had mass incidents in this courthouse and say there's 40 employees in the courthouse and every employee suffered problems, they could get 3 counseling sessions,
Yeah, although at that point, if we're dealing with a massive incident,
then you're jumping.
we're
to
gonna
the-
bring in,
Okay.
I mean, I would hope, we're gonna
Okay.
bring in on-site.
The only reason I ask
Psychiatrist.
is in 73, I was in a state office building that had a traumatic incident and we had probably 70 of the employees who had to go to counseling because they witnessed what had happened. So I was, okay,
So this is, you know, if you need it, this is a great deal. If it doesn't get used, it's not. And so that's the reason, you know, we had gotten rid of it previously was nobody was using it. And these companies provide you with stats about how often it's used, what type of services are used. So you can make that evaluation from year to year as to whether this is worth it. So what I'm asking is that we take a chance again, we try again. We would promote this to employees and supervisors to let them know that this service is available. And, you know, in a year, if it's not being used, we can go back to not having it, but it's not a large expense. This has not gone to finance committee yet, so I will have to get it through Pat with their operating budget, but
okay. So if finance would get that issue. I think you need to figure out which one would suit
yeah, I mean,
Or-
if there are
or
strong,
someone.
yeah, if there are strong
Finance
preferences.
discusses it.
This is an employee benefit, so this committee decides if we get it do or not, and then
Okay.
it just goes into the budget.
Then
So-
would it, from a committee, it would go to the county board to approve in the budget?
It would, it would just go to into the budget, and
Okay,
if this committee approves, because it's an employee benefit.
This is Bill. Does this include county board supervisors? You know, I'm just saying because they're Ashland County employees.
Sue, do you remember that 178 number if that were included? No.
The 178 does not include county board supervisors.
The number doesn't. Currently, no.
Okay.
Although we could increase that if
Well,
that were
okay.
desire.
I have a second question. Forgot it. God, it'll come back to me. Go ahead, Pat.
But we're not employees by the legal definition. I retired 7 years ago and they had brought this in, and I'll just tell you the feedback I got initially. So were these online resources, and the overwhelming comments I heard from people that looked at it, and my feelings were the same as, if all I'm doing is looking at online resources and not talking to the human being, not interested, to put it politely, no interest whatsoever, to put it politely. So the one where they have someone to talk to, it just seems to me, if you need somebody to talk to, you need a human being to talk to. We didn't have AI back then. But from having dealt with AI and some of my stuff in my personal life, it's just really maddening. And I don't think you want to rely on an app that uses AI when someone needs someone to talk to. So I would suggest that staff figure out which they like. And if it's the one where you have someone to talk to, it would seem to make the most sense. And this is a small amount of money. And we live in a world today where we know that the social safety net is not heading in the direction of being stronger. We know we're going to have more people with more things that make life difficult. So I can see where, you know, there's going to be more need for this, but I think the staff should decide which one they prefer. And I would support whatever choice they make.
It came to me. Is there any grants for this that we could apply for to go ahead and offset the cost, or?
Not that I know of,
Okay.
but it's always possible. We may be able to find something. The other,
Yeah, if this is passed by the committee, when would it take effect?
January 1st.
Okay, so it would be in the next budget.
Yep.
When you're,
Um,
and you're talking $3,300?
It ranges, I mean, it'll be under 4,000
Okay.
is really what we're looking at. One of the things I wanted to add about funding, is that we potentially could use some opioid funding for a percentage of this because our first responders are dealing with mental health issues related to responding to opioid overdose deaths. And that's a very real thing. Like I have a very real example from the sheriff's department. So that could use part of this funding, but only the percentage that covers our sheriff's office folks.
Well, and the coroner's office too. I mean,
Right.
they're dealing with opioid
Yeah.
deaths too. And HHS too deals with a lot of that.
Right.
And I will say some of the examples that I've heard since I've been here are employees who are struggling with what they're seeing coming across their desk. I mean, this isn't all personal problems. These are the things that we're asking people to deal with. They don't see the pretty sides of our population, and that can take a toll.
This is Bill. If this is passed, will it be revisited for the next budget?
We'll look at the stats and decide next year around this time whether or not.
Yeah, okay, so we'll I'll make a motion that this be adopted, provided that it's reviewed next year for the next budget.
Do you want to add staff picks which model?
But before we propose it, we need to narrow it down to which
Yeah,
one we
yeah,
want to use.
yeah.
And go from there. So I mean, if we're not,
Yeah, we still have time because, we're still gonna be working on the budget for next year, so.
Yeah, I mean, I have an opinion, and I wanted to address, Pat, your comment about the AI. I actually reached out to 2 other companies on the eastern side of the state, just because I was looking around at what everybody uses, just to get a good idea and some quotes. And it ended up talking to a woman at Aurora Health who provides, I think it's Manitowoc County, does their employee assistance program. It was her last day. She was retiring. So she was feeling very honest, which was great. Because, she told me like, we could put together a proposal for you, but it would not be good because we don't have in-person providers in your area. And the other thing she told me was try to avoid companies that are pushing the AI stuff because it goes on word choice, not on voice like what tone of voice. And so how people say things is sometimes far more important than what they're saying. And so that's kind of influencing the direction that I think the company we should try.
Pat?
Regardless of which company we go with, if we go with one, this is relative to most things, a small amount. We have far more, as you well know, in contingency than we need to cover this. If we have people asking for this at this point in time, and it's a small amount, and we certainly have it in contingency, which I don't see any reason why we can't use, unless I'm wrong about that. My sense is we get a staff recommendation and then look into the opioid fund use if it's allowable and then we fill the gap on the model of employees pick and just approve it at the next executive committee meeting if it's pulled together and then make that available to employees. I don't see this as something where we need to wait to go through budget season. And if there's a need for it, given how things are, because I mean, I think all of you know how hard it is to find a local doctor. I don't have a primary health person and neither does my wife. And if you want to see anybody for anything, good luck with it. And so this is filling a gap in part because our healthcare system, the way it is so hard to find anybody for anything. And I think that's part of why you're seeing this is what are their alternatives? It takes too long.
Okay, I'm gonna make an executive decision here that we take Pat's advice and our advice that you figure out what we need, bring it back to the next executive committee meeting, and I will make the note that Bill's motion failed for lack of a second.
How do you know that?
Is there a second? Hearing none?
Yeah, I guess the thing is, point out, the thing is that we need to establish which company we're going with.
Right,
And until we do that, that kind of was a dumb motion.
right. No, it was good. Thank you. Okay. Highbridge Post Office.
So, most of you know about the Highbridge Post Office saga. Um, Matt, do you want to talk about this since Highway already made a decision?
Yeah, so as you know, we had a initial lease a year ago, which post office backed out on. They came back to us and wanted to do another lease with us moving the septic tank. So the lease was signed, I believe, in March of this year. And we had agreed to move the septic tank in early May, which we did. And we notified them. Now they came back and they said, they want to terminate the lease. They think it needs a $200,000 retaining wall on the site. And, they just want out. And they are offering to pay us all of our expenses plus a 1-year lease payment, which it comes in that total would be that they would owe us would be the $57,000 to $58,000, somewhere's in there. I don't know. I did talk to a gentleman, I think his name was Hudson Waters. He does not work for the post office. He works for, I think, JLL, which is a contractor to the post office. I said, what's with a retaining wall? The site is ready for a building. It's ready. It has water, power, sewer. It's ready for them to set their, mobile building on the site. And he says he doesn't really know. That's just what the post office wants to do. Highway department discussed it and they made a motion to support, getting all of our money back and walking away from the lease deal.
Yeah, I was listening to the highway department and I'm kind of adamant myself. Matt has gone way and above what was required. We have bent over backwards. I think we cut our ties, get our money back and say, post office, do whatever you want, but Matt and the department have done way and above what was required. And I think we just say, we'll take the money you owe us, get that 1-year lease and say, get out of this because it's not going anywhere. This is the worst deal I've ever seen in my life for, what they want, then they change their minds and that isn't good enough. And then they wanted to relocate. And I think we just say, hey, we spent enough time on this.
As Gary said, they've asked multiple times to relocate the site to alongside of our other driveway, which, I'm not interested in. That's our main entrance exit for our trucks in and out of our facility. And I don't want to mix the post office traffic with our truck traffic. So, and I'm just not interested in dealing with them any further.
Sean?
Made a good decision. They are never happy and they will do whatever they can to screw with you. And it's not steep enough to need a retaining wall there. They want one because they want you to put one in and maintain it. So they'll have something. A door this far out of whack had to be leveled every spring and every fall and then they'll need a loading ramp for the truck. As soon as they move in, I agree that it's a nightmare dealing with them. That's why there isn't a post office in Highbridge currently.
Okay, Bill?
I just think that the people in the area are suffering from the lack of the post office. And we tried working with the post office and they keep changing their mind. And right now, I can't see if the post office doesn't go where it does, no one's going to build there. That's not going to be a house or anything, So I think the committee has done everything that they can, and the people are the ones that are hurting. And I guess the thing is, if they want to terminate it and pay us off, that's good. But I'd like to leave the door open that if you do down the road change your mind, we're here.
Thanks, Bill. So is there a motion to approve that agreement that we terminate? We get our money back that they owe us and the 1-year lease, which is included, and we say goodbye.
I'll
John?
make a motion to agree to the post office terms and terminate the current lease that they have.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Matt. Okay, wages for medical examiner.
So most of you know, Sean, you weren't on the board yet. We abolished the office of coroner effective next year to replace it with a medical examiner. So we have to decide how much to pay a medical examiner. So Pam made up a request. She's online here. But basically she's asking for about $36,000 a year. Or 38,000, I should say.
Bill?
Currently, she gets paid $19,051,
Yes,
and that is through the end of the year.
that's through the end of the year, yes. So most of this wages would be made up with death certificate fees, cremation fees, all that stuff. So her work would essentially be paying for itself. And getting a medical examiner is not the easiest thing in the world.
I know Pam's on here, so I don't want to step on her toes, but this document, if you read through it, was pretty well crafted, and she and I met last week to talk through her budget. Historically, the coroner has been paid the same rate as the sheriff. So that's what this ask reflects, is that the sheriff's salary is increasing next year. And so keeping it on par, she'd like the medical examiner to keep up with that. The other thing about this annual salary amount, it is based on hours worked. You know, there's no on-call pay, no holiday pay, no nothing extra. It's just that if she works those hours, she's going to get paid that rate. And so if we have fewer deaths in the county, you know, that salary will be lower. And we did run through kind of a calculation with the new fees for cremation and death certificate signing that will, should she work that many hours, will offset almost all of that salary cost.
Bill?
Is there anything for the deputy coroners or anything else? Is that part of this?
So those folks are paid, I believe it's like a per diem rate.
Yeah, I think they're paid $50.
Yep.
Pam, how much?
Yep.
On the line, we could ask her.
Yep, so the deputy coroners are paid per diem per call, $150 per call up to 8 hours. If it was greater than 8 hours, I don't have it in front of me. I believe it's 225. And then their mileage. If they attend a meeting, it's $50. And cremations, if they do them, they're paid $50 per cremation.
Okay, any other question? Sean?
Yeah, I mean, I looked up some of this information statewide, and the coroner's average wage is 18-ish to 20-some-ish an hour, which she's over, but when you call it a medical examiner, I mean, we don't have a coroner in the county, nor do we need one as far as I know. That $50.50 an hour is a huge jump. I mean, you need more hours. We got definitely more hours in the day. But that's a fair bit more than technically what the sheriff makes, and technically, I guess the sheriff only needs to be in the office 10 hours a week legally.
The sheriff's wages next year are over 100,000. The sheriff's wages next year are over 100,000.
Okay, this bill, this resolution that we got here in front of us, does that have to be amended after the next election or this election?
No, it doesn't, because the medical examiner is appointed, not
No, but
elected.
as far as for the sheriff and the clerk of
We
courts,
we did that earlier this year.
okay. I wish I would like to see what they're actually getting paid for the next 4 years. And I would like to have the coroner come up with some type of report as far as how many incidents they actually attended, because it, or worked on, because, this figure of 19,051 could be really low depending on the person's workload. But then if we increase it dramatically, is there a need for it, or should we just increase the amount of per call or whatever? So the thing is, I have no clue how much, I really would not want this job. So it's hard to fill, but I feel that the individual should be compensated if it deserves to be. Thanks.
Hi, this is Pam. So in the report I submitted, there is information on how many cremations we do and the time it takes to do those. The cremations, death investigations, we are not paid any on-call compensation. We are expected to be available 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So I guess I'm not understanding what additional information you're looking for.
Yeah, this is Gary. I'll just say that most of this salary, as Carolyn said, would be made up by the fees, correct? Yeah, and I don't need to point out looking around the room, except for one or two. This is what our county looks like. I mean, our county is old. I'm sorry. And I agree. I wouldn't want the job. And if the salary can be made up by the fees charged, I don't have a problem with it. I know it's a huge jump in looking at that, but if we can show the board that we're gonna make that money back by fees, and that's what we talked about a few months ago, was the fees were gonna get increased.
I mean, it is hard to predict how many people are gonna die. So that is the struggle that Pam and I had as we were working through numbers last week. It's like, well, but, and to be clear, like, because the sheriff's salary is taking a jump next year, that's why there is the big jump in this one, just to keep it on par the way it's been historically.
And a little bit of the increase that I asked for was the amount of hours paid, which I think is still less than actually worked, averaged out over a year. But the last time that's been addressed that I can see was at least 2015. So right now we're paid 10.5 hours a week. If I have one case that is an autopsy, I'm over 10.5 hours in a week. That's not any on-call hours. That is actually hours worked.
Okay, so if the executive committee approves this, does it just go forward?
It just goes into the budget.
Okay. Okay. Pat?
Could you talk about benefits?
Pam works for HHS also, so she gets all the county benefits.
So they are not included in this portion because she doesn't get them with this position. She has them with her other position.
So
I
no-
did
no-
want to ask something though. I did bring this up to Caroline, and only because I don't know you guys. So I do get life insurance, through HHS and not through the coroner. And I don't know if it matters, but what happens if I was on a coroner call and something happened, and because we're on some scenes that are, pretty horrific, and I was killed there. That's not my daytime job. This is a different job.
Life insurance covers you no matter where you are, no matter when you die, even if you're at home.
It doesn't matter. if
Doesn't
you're on
matter
the
that
job.
you're working or not working, no.
Okay, okay.
Okay, so Pat, that was answered. There's no benefits?
I have zero benefits.
Okay,
But she gets them as a public health nurse.
correct.
Correct.
So when we look at the cost of this, what we're not doing is we're not, I mean, Sean wasn't here when we voted to go to a medical examiner versus a coroner. Coroner was elected and you never know what you get for a coroner, whether they have the qualifications or not. And the world's gotten more complicated as far as death investigations and what's required and you know, what people should know to do that job. But we're not in a position because we're small enough that we're not having to hire a medical examiner who has a big enough workload where we then have another person where we provide benefits. So the benefit to the county, even though the salary is mirroring the sheriff for historical reasons, is we're not having to pay the benefits for this position because they're covered somewhere else, which actually means if you prorate it with the sheriff because he's getting pay and benefits, this is actually less costly to the county for this position being covered this way than if we were large enough and had to pay benefits for this position.
Can I also add something? I just want you to know that I also in this do try to apply for grants, which I did this past year. I applied for a grant and I received one in the amount of $19,470 to help us become a little more modernized. Prior to this, everything we did was paper-based, and I believe it's all stored in the courthouse, all previous records, you know, on paper. So with this grant, you know, it also helps the budget with office supplies and what we did get out of this was a case management system. And I will continue to look for grants to help offset the budget and to help our office become more modernized.
Good, thank you. Sue?
They are, that salary is Wisconsin retirement. She would get retirement paid on that salary.
Okay.
So with FICA.
Good. Clarence?
Pam's question about life insurance, though, did bring up one other thought in my mind. Are we being charged on our workman's comp for her duties as a medical examiner? Because if, let's say that she were injured and couldn't work in her health and human services position because of an injury that occurred during the medical examiner's position, how would that play out?
Well, she's listed separately on the workers' comp audit report. So she's listed as coroner and as public health nurse.
Okay.
So.
Good, thank you. Okay. Pat?
You know, what I'd like to see is just some data, and you have to go back far enough because you, on the one hand, you can't predict, say, on a weekly basis how many are going to die, but we have historical data. We know our population, the age, the demographics, and you've got mortality tables. We can make pretty educated guesses about how many, barring, you know, things like COVID. Is that we just look at the fee schedule for cremation and death certificates, and we adjust the fee schedule to keep up with the cost of this position. You know, I hate to use the word user fee here, but it's really what it is. So that our fees for this cover the position. That's, I understand the request for the salary there, but I think the other half of this is we just keep up with the fee schedule, so we're covering it.
Yeah.
There's a statutory limit on what you can charge.
Yes.
For tickets.
Is there?
Yeah. And
Yep, and every year I increase the fees by the CSI, right, consumer CPI, sorry.
Yeah.
So whatever that is, we do increase them every January 1. But I believe, you know, as Dan said, there is a statutory limit on what we can increase them by annually.
Okay,
What was the total income that you took in last year? I didn't see it anyplace.
I think it was
Maybe,
about,
yeah,
it
thanks,
was a-
Caroline.
yeah, I think it was about $29,000. And that would have been before the fee increase.
Yeah, before the increase, so
Okay.
it's gonna be more.
okay. So do we have any motion? Bill?
I think increase is definitely warranted, but I'm unsure of the amount. And it doesn't, it seems like she's working a lot more hours than what she's getting paid for, which that isn't right. So it's a lot to think about. Go ahead, Pat.
Pam, you know, what you just said about the increases, that rings a bell from our conversation a year or more ago. The other thing is, if I'm recalling, is what you need for equipment and supplies for this, you store at home. Is that correct? Are you getting compensated for that?
We do. I
Okay.
believe, and Sue may be able to,
Max is here, he can comment on it.
Yeah, that was something, this has been an ongoing issue with Barb and now Pam, and we've looked into any way, given the way that this position has been structured, to get this additional compensation or reimbursement. We did set up for home office expense as a way that is allowed because she keeps all of that stuff there. I can say going back 2022, this issue first came up with Barb. And then when Pam started in May of 2024, in all of those discussions, the estimated hour and time spent was approximately 20 hours for the coroner position. Here, I know in this, Pam had said 14.6, but that's, I would say, in line with what we've been hearing for years, the actual work is being done.
Okay, Sean?
Can we get the numbers from last year and then the proposed increase? I mean, before we make a final decision, you said about $29,000. Is it 29,000 or was it 28 and change?
It was a little over. And I only know
I
that 'cause
mean,
we
so
were
what
looking at
is
it on
the
Friday.
fee increase per hour? I mean.
Well,
So we were looking at about $33,000 for cremation, just a rough estimate, and then about $4,000, I believe, for death certificate signing. There are some fee waivers that go through with both cremations and death. So we did, you know, we had to try to take those into consideration as we were making an estimate for this coming year.
Max?
And I have one more thing on this. With the county's change from a coroner to a medical examiner position, gives the county a lot more flexibility on the compensation because of issues we were running into when it was a coroner position. Since that was elected, you can't change anything with compensation during the term of that elected official. Switching this over to medical examiner, if there's a huge shift in the needs of the medical examiner, or if the work isn't there, the county board has the ability to revisit this compensation really at any time now with this change.
Good. Bill?
Another question. Now, the county employees will probably be getting a raise for 2027. Are they automatically going to be, is her salary going to be bumped up with that raise, or is this set for the whole year?
set for next year because she's still coroner this year. It is, but it's January 2nd or something this year. That first Monday, in January, where it would take effect. That's
January of 2027?
right. That's when the new sheriff's wages would take effect and the new registered deeds wages would take effect.
What I'm asking is, whatever we decide today, is it going to, is then there going to be another raise or no?
No, we're setting the 27 wage right now.
27 wage.
Yes.
Okay, as chair, I'm gonna make this real easy. You either get a second or you don't. I'm making a motion to approve the wages for the medical examiner for 2027. Is there a second?
Can I ask something?
Wait, just a
Okay.
second. Because if we don't get a second, we have a problem. So there's a motion to approve the wages for the medical examiner for 2027. Is there a second?
I'll
Clarence?
second it so we can vote on it.
Okay, second by Clarence. Sharon? I-
I've never been called that, but that's
I
okay.
know.
Could you please state the wage that you're approving so it's noted in the
The
minutes?
$38,077. Okay, other discussion. Pat?
Were there people running for coroner anymore a few years ago, or and was that part of the problem?
Nobody was running for coroner.
And one of the, just some information, one of the problems is I could run for coroner.
Well,
I'm not even qualified, but I could be. And if I got elected, too bad for you.
So part of it was we weren't getting people running.
Right.
So when I look at the numbers up there, roughly ballpark, for the revenue we bring in, the coroner wage roughly covered that for the hours proposed here. That would be ballpark. The problem was, one, you got to get somebody to run for coroner. Two, that they should have some qualifications. Three, it'd be nice if they stay for continuity's sake. So where we were with the coroner, things really weren't working very well. So this change was proposed. But it also means, well, we get someone more qualified, more confident. We have an opportunity for continuity, but we pay more. That's what we end up having to give to get what we want when we couldn't get a coroner. So how much beyond the 3489 towards the 50/50 do we go? I don't know if we said no to this and she said, well, okay, enough's enough. I got other things in life. I have no idea what it would cost us or what we would get if we had to find someone else. My gut feeling from those conversations a year or two ago on this issue is it would be good luck on getting someone comparable in terms of background, skills, dedication for the money that we're offering here. I think we'd be hard pressed to do better for qualifications and experience than we have and for the money we pay, regardless of how we feel about the $50.50. I think we'd have a hard time doing better.
Well, Max already said this earlier. In the event Pam were to resign as medical examiner, the county board has flexibility to set the wages at whatever they want. So I think we may have to revisit the wages at that point.
Pretty hard to lower a wage after you've established it. That's the problem. I'm coming up with a net shortage based on a 2% increase in fees and a 35% increase in cost. So I'm thinking something in the middle, but he made the motion.
And does your motion include raising proposed hours of the medical examiner from 10.5 to 14.5?
Yeah.
I guess I kind of agree with Sean. I think that we have to, and is this going to be revisited next year then?
Yes, we can revisit next year. If
Okay.
that's what this committee wants, we can certainly revisit next year.
Can not. We should, we will.
Okay.
I'd make a proposal, but I don't have all the information to make an accurate assessment. I would be more in the $40 an hour range and raising it up to, 14.5 or 15 hours a week as necessary for it to do the job. But I can't make a solid decision this second. And
Okay, any other questions? There is a motion and a second on the floor. We can do it one of two ways.
Roll call.
We can do a roll call.
Lori, can you do a roll call vote, please?
Yep, I had to get unmuted. Gary Mertig,
Yes,
Pat Kinney,
Yes.
Clarence Campbell,
Yes.
Bill Metzinger,
No.
Sean Sederholm.
No.
okay, motion passed. And we will revisit it next year and we'll have actual figures then. We'll know whether the fees came in. If it didn't cover it, we can adjust it. Bill?
Question. Who decides the rates that's going to be charged? Is that the statewide?
The county board decided it.
But as far as there's going to be an increase, do we have to check on the increase before it goes to the county board as the executive committee, or what is it automatically done?
It's the resolution, change it to CPI, the increased. Because we're already at we went to the maximum you could do. So now the only increase is the increase to CPI.
So that was.
So initially for the death certificate, you can, I believe per statute, you can start that at $100. And that's where we're at because we just implemented the death certificate signing fee. So that's $100 come, the end of the year, whatever the CPI is, I will increase it that per the resolution that we can annually increase that. And the same thing with the cremation signing. Right now, that is at $131. And then it's increased annually by the CPI, which I believe last year was 3%, if I'm not mistaken.
And given the way inflation's running, it's going to be at least 3%.
Well,
Next.
yeah, it's probably, worst case, it's gonna be 3.6. It could go up over 4 if the soil doesn't come down, but we'll know in a month. Pat?
So when we talked about this before, Sean was here, one of the issues with the coroner, we talked about this on call and compensation for that. Because if you're asking someone to be on call, you're asking something of them. And, we compare this to the sheriff data. It would be interesting to know what the history is of when you have to make these calls as a medical examiner when you get called, because people die all the time, day and night. My sense is, but I don't have data for this, is that a medical examiner, when on call, has a lot more inconvenience in their life than the sheriff, who probably can go home and deputies can handle things while the sheriff is off duty. My sense is the medical examiner's life is more disrupted with calls. And that's part of what's baked into this compensation. And it's no small thing as far as the inconvenience to your life, because you don't have, it's there. It's just a lot of inconvenience, and you don't know when it happens.
Well, and two, anticipate that I pass away tomorrow, but I wind up going to the hospital in Park Falls. Is it not true, Pam, that you'd wind up going to Park Falls if I'm there?
Absolutely.
So now you're coming from wherever well, you get to tour beautiful Ashland County on the way down. But that's what you're
Yeah.
talking about. You're talking about a lot of time. Time down there is an hour more, the time you spend there, and then an hour or so back. So it gets to be a big problem unless we have somebody closer. But potentially you could wind up, like say in Park Falls, if that person is there. So, okay, good.
I have another question. You get paid mileage then, or what? How does that work?
Yes, I submit mileage.
Okay, if you land up working the 30 hours, is there any more compensation for that?
No. It's one base salary, that's it, no matter how many hours I work. And I'll just give you guys one example of a case that at 10.5 hours a week, we had a case this year that was out in the forest. I don't know. It was a suicide, okay? The person was not from here. They were from another country, Bangladesh. And you have to walk out to where they're at. You have to remove that person from where they're at. You have to let law enforcement do their job while you're there. So on site, just where the person is, was about 4 to 4.5 hours. Now you remove them, you do all the preparation to get them for autopsy. Now you have to find and notify any next of kin, which took about another 8 hours. Now you have to try to communicate with them, which is outside of this country. Then you have to get the autopsy results. You have to read them. You have to communicate them. So on one case, it was about 60 hours of work. And that's in less than 4 days. That's just one case.
Thank you, Pam. I think we're done with this. Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay, now we need to go to closed session. We may move into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Stats 1985 1G to confer with legal counsel concerning potential strategy and pending or threatened litigation regarding inmates under Chapter 980 supervised release. After closed session, a committee may reconvene in open session to take action on any matters discussed during the closed session. So is there a
I'll make a motion that we go into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.85, parent 1, parent G.
Okay, is there a
Just going
second?
into closed
I'll
session.
second it.
Sean, Clarence made the motion. Sean seconds it.
Lori, can you do a roll call vote, please?
Gary Mertig,
Yes.
Pat Kinney,
Yes.
Clarence Campbell,
Yes.
Bill Metzinger,
He's excused for the moment.
Sean Sederholm.
Yes.
Okay, I am gonna end the Zoom now, so
Okay,
You're ending Zoom or you want me to put people?
I'm ending Zoom to make sure it stays closed.
Okay, then,
I'll let you know what happens afterwards.
perfect. Thank you.
thanks, Laurie. We'll wait for